This video is a listing of potential camping spots along the full length of the Cape Wrath Trail. I put it together because I met some people who were surprised that there's many places on the trail where it's actually very difficult to find a comfortable camping spot for the night. They imagine that they can just walk until they're tired at the end of the day and then pop their tent up. But anyone who knows the Scottish Highlands knows that much of the landscape, it can be sloping on a hill, it can be rocky, it can be stony, it can be marshy, it can be boggy, it can be covered in heather or bracken or gorse. So to find a reasonably level, reasonably nice grassy spot is not always that easy. To help you find your way around the listing, it goes from south to north, and for each spot, I've given you which stage in the guidebook it appears, a name for the nearest sort of place on the map that you might help you to identify it, but also an accurate grid reference. For some of the grid references, you'll see I put plus/minus afterwards. What that means is that there's quite a stretch of trail there where there's comfortable camping spots, for example, alongside a river. There might be for 2 or 3 kilometers, a nice riverbank where you can put your tent up. So when it says plus minus, the grid reference gives you the general location, but look around and pick a spot that suits you. I'm not pretending it's in any way a comprehensive list. There's obviously dozens, even hundreds of other spots you could pop your tent up. So it's just a starter for people who are unfamiliar with the Highlands. And I'm not even pretending they're the best around. Other people may have their favourites and wonder why they're missing. They're just ones that I either camped on or I saw as I passed, and I thought that would be a nice spot to put a tent up. So I hope you find it helpful, and let's get going. This is a great spot for your first night if you catch the 10:15 ferry from Fort William. It's at the top of Kona Glen, lovely setting, nice flat grass right by the river. If you catch a later ferry, you probably won't make it to here, but you could camp lower down by the river somewhere. If you catch the early ferry, you might want to press on to Glenfinnan, but be aware if you do that, from here onwards, it's steep uphill and then down, and there's really nowhere suitable for camping until you get beyond Glenfinnan, so a good further few hours to go. I'm not doing a review of bothies in this video, but it's always useful to know where they are in case of emergencies, so I've inserted them into the video sequence at the right point. And also there's often good camping around bothies, as you can see at this one, Corryhull Bothy, nice flat grass. So you can camp there, you can go in and chat to anyone who's in the bothy, you can have your meal in there and sit down and retire to your tent at night for privacy if that's what you want. From the bothy, there's a steep ascent and then descent from the Beelach. But once you get down that, then it levels out into a beautiful flat level glen floor. And for 2 or 3 kilometers alongside of the river, there's plenty of opportunities on both banks where you can put your tent up. And this is the first camping that you really feel you're getting out into the remote, wild country of Scotland. This has to be one of the finest on the whole trail. It's called Sourleys. There is Sourleys Bothy here, we'll see in a minute, but it's right on the shore of one of Scotland's finest sea lochs, and there's plenty of open flat grassland where you can take your pick of where you want to pitch, close to the water's edge or further back if you want. So it's a great stop. This is Sourleys Bothy, right on the water's edge, surely one of the best located bothies to be found. You can stay there, although it does get busy in the summer months, or you can pitch your tent just nearby, as you see someone in this picture has already done. and use the facilities in the bothy, but get the privacy of sleeping in your tent. This is Barrisdale campsite, lovely location, nice flat smooth grass, but very little in the way of facilities, a toilet and a hand basin, and that's your lot. No showers, no hot water, no toilet paper, nowhere to dispose of your rubbish, and an honesty box for payment. This is Kinlochewe tea rooms, which provide a welcome respite after the tiring walk along from Barrisdale Bay, and the camping is just slightly further along the trail and turn left over a bridge into a lovely field. I think there's a £1 honesty box there for it, but that's a nice camping spot. This is another one of my favourites. It's about 3 or 4 kilometres up from Kinlochewe. It's just where you cross the river. You can camp on either side of the river on nice flat grass. There's a little wooden hunting shelter just nearby to give you a landmark. If you don't stop here, then from now on, about the next 12 kilometres or so, all the way to Shield Bridge is pretty rough and uphill and then downhill country. Not many opportunities there for camping. There is a campsite at Shield Bridge, but this one is the Caravan and Camping Club site a little bit further on at Morvich, just a bit beyond Kintail Craft Shop. A great place to stop in and stock up, and they'll take resupply parcels. It's a lovely campsite here at Morvich. You will have to book almost certainly. They have a strict 6-metre distance between tents, so the picture you see here is actually classified as being full. This is another super spot. It's at the top of the Falls of Glomach. You can't quite see them in this picture, but there's wide open grassy areas where you can take your pick and then go and have a look at the falls. And it's just so remote and such beautiful countryside surrounding it that this is one of the best spots to stop. When I came to the bottom of the Falls of Glomach, I turned left to head directly to Strathcarron because of time pressures, so most of you probably won't do that. This spot is along the river, beautiful spot and plenty of opportunities. Most of you, though, will probably turn right. There's then about 4 kilometres of nice flat-looking land alongside the river, where I'm sure you'd find somewhere, or if you start to ascend, there are 2 bothies higher up where you could stop comfortably. This is Qua Fionarech Bothy. It's about 6 kilometres beyond Strathcarron. There's not a lot of camping spots up here that are particularly pleasant unless you stop right close to Strathcarron by the river. Otherwise, once you start the ascent up the glen, this bothy is a good stopping point. Or if you continue, you've probably got about another 9 kilometres to go over through the Belach and down the other side towards the Ling Hut. This would be quite a nice spot for camping if it wasn't windy. It is quite windy at the moment and it's fairly exposed, but it's the first possibility, reasonable, since Strathcarron. There's really not much at all before there, and you're pretty much right at the top, just at the Belach, having walked up from Strathcarron. There's water, as you can see, and there is some flat ground where you could plant your tent, but even then it's a bit tussocky, but it would be a beautiful spot on a lovely sunny evening. This is the campsite in Kinlochewe, obviously not wild camping, but if you want a break, it's a lovely place to come. I've stayed here one night. It's £13 a night, or it was when I stayed here, and it's a caravan and camping club site, so very well maintained, but you will need to book. It's only small. There's only, I think, about 10 sites for tents. All the rest are big caravans and motorhomes, but the tents placements are fine, and it's got, if you think you know, a bit expensive maybe, but it's got a drying room where you can hang your stuff up for free, a washing machine room, I don't know if they're free or not, very nice toilets, and also sockets where you can plug in your phone for charging. So there's my tent over there. So well recommended. There's really very little between Strathcarron and here, Kinlochewe, that's at all acceptable for camping, so it's well worth considering getting here and staying at the campsite. This is an absolutely perfect spot for wild camping. After yesterday's dearth of nice places anywhere between Strathcarron or Kinlochewe, this is about just a couple of 2 or 3 kilometres north of Kinlochewe, so if you can't get into the campsite there, or you don't want to, it's right by this river. I would imagine if you looked you could probably find somewhere suitable right down by the river, but if not, there's grass along this side. There is quite a wide road, walking track, but you could get a little bit further away if you wanted to just go up there, and it's surrounded by beautiful scenery, so this looks like a really good spot. Just look at this for a beautiful camping spot. It's Lochglennamoose, if that's how it's pronounced. There's not a lot of flat ground, but I'm sure you could find somewhere down by the waterside there. But just look at that lovely scenery. What a place to camp. It's about 4.5 hours or so out of Kinlochewe, depending how fast you walk. It could be less if you're a speedy walker and don't stop for lunch. But this would be a really nice one. You really are spoilt for choice here. There's the Lockham we looked at on the last slot, but then just a short way further along you come to a second Lochgan, and then if we continue over there, furthest one, Lochgan Farder, up there. And if to prove my point, here are 2 tents who've camped themselves right by the bank of Loch Farder. What a beautiful setting for the night. Well, what a cracker this one is, another really good one. A beautiful loch there, lovely scenery, and acres of lovely flat grass leading right down to the water's edge. Water running in from a river over there, and just to prove my point, there we have 2 tents ahead already putting themselves up for the night. And if you head just a kilometre further on north, you come to this wonderful beach at the northern tip of Loch Nid, and that just looks an absolutely super place to pitch your tent for the night. Another one close by. This is just heading north. We've left Loch Nid but not far behind, and this is the river, the outlet from it, and you can see the river snaking away down there, and there seems to be lots of lovely flat ground there right by the side of the river where you could set your tent up, get your water. This is just by Cheneval Bothy, and as you can see there's acres of lovely flat green grass which would be ideal for pitching your tent. There's water down there and wonderful scenery surrounding you, but the grass over there looks almost like a flat playing field, and if you wanted to bail out because of the weather or something, then just round behind here is the bothy. The guidebook says there's nowhere really suitable for wild camping between Shenavale, Bothy and Inverale. Well, this doesn't look too bad to me. This is where I was last night, and I'm just a few kilometres before Inverale. To be honest, it is true, to be fair to the guidebook, this grass is a bit coarse, it's not very soft, and it is a little bit marshy. You have to kind of press underfoot, but hey, I've had a lot worse than this. This is about a kilometre further along from the previous spot, Loch Tionpiane. So this one is Loch and Fiona, and again, lovely looking place, flat grass, beautiful setting. So the guidebook saying there's nowhere between Shenavale, Bothy and Inverale, I'd have to disagree. The guidebook recommends camping, or possible camping over there. It does look nice green grass, and it's right by this impressive waterfall. So you just have to be careful not to go sleepwalking in the middle of the night, otherwise you'd have a big drop down into the ravine. If you're exhausted after Glen du Charry and don't want to walk the extra 4 kilometres or so to Inchnadamph Bothy, this looks a lovely spot. Some nice flat ground, grass, and right by the edge of Loch and Dame. This is Inchnadamph Bothy in a lovely setting at the northern end of Loch and Dame, just a little bit above the shoreline. And if you want to pitch your tent there, there's some nice flat grass around, as you can see, where you can pop a tent up and then go into the bothy to eat. And if you don't want to camp right by the bothy, then there's plenty of nice flat grass closer to the water's edge of the loch at the northern tip of the loch. The schoolhouse bothy, not the most inspiring of buildings, and right by a fairly substantial 4x4 track, but there's plenty of flat grass around, as you can see, if you want to pitch your tent there, or indeed a bit further down the glen. This is a pretty spot right by Oykel Bridge. It's quite close to the road, as you can see, which you might not like, although the road isn't busy at all. It's close by the Oykel Bridge Hotel, which could be convenient if you want to eat there, although you will need to check the times, because when I was there, they were only doing food at lunchtime between 12 and 2. This is a pretty spot on the River Oykel, just a short way out from Oykel Bridge. But it's a popular salmon fishing river, and I have heard that if you camp here and are spotted, the gillies will move you on. So you might do better to camp either back at Oykel Bridge or press on further to beyond Benmore Lodge. This is a few kilometres further along the River Oykel, but the same cautionary note applies as in the previous clip about salmon fishing and gillies moving you on. This is a nicer spot. We have got some nicer, flatter, shorter grass where you could certainly pitch a tent or two, and right by the river. What a beautiful setting. Hills up there shrouded in clouds today. And it's just beyond the footbridge, which you cross up there to continue on the path. This is tonight's spot. It's slightly bumpy, lumpy, uneven ground, but I found a reasonably flat spot there. But what a setting. There's the waterfall coming down, and that heads down into the valley. There's the River Oykel below. I've walked right along this valley. You can't really see it, it's blocked out, but from the left there, and we'll be continuing up there tomorrow, but from here on it gets rougher and steeper, so this was a good place to stop and get the tent up. Here's a nice little spot, bit of flat grass here where you could pitch your tent, little tarn or lochen, and a bit of flowing water. It's just as you are on the Bealach exiting Glen Oykel, and the route heads on down. There's the Bealach continuing, and just over through that V-shaped notch it goes down the other side. I don't think I'd recommend it in bad weather or strong winds. I would imagine the wind would funnel through here, but today there's very little wind and it would just be a perfect spot. Oh well, there's a beautiful location. Lovely loch encircled by mountains, covered in cloud at the moment. So it looks down on the end there as though there's some flat grass there, which could be where I'm spending the night if I am. Well, that was a bit disappointing. That lovely flat green turf that I showed you in the previous shot turned out to be boggy. So I've managed to find a spot, as you can see, and it is beautiful right by the loch there. It's just to the north side on the path of a tributary stream running down. This makes it in because it really is in just one of the most stunning, amazing settings I've ever seen in the Highlands, and it's just beautiful, totally remote, totally silent. You may have to hunt a bit for a patch of flat grass. It's a little bit slopey down there and a bit tough, tussocky, but I think it's worth putting in, and it certainly looks over there, for example. I'm sure if you hunt around you could find something there for the night. And another idyllic little lochen just a short distance on from the previous one. And again, the same proviso applies. It does look as though quite a lot of that surrounding grass might be a bit rough for camping, but it does look to me as though there's quite a nice patch there of green grass. So I'm sure, again, if you hunted around you'd find something for you. This is Glencool bothy, if you want to stay in a bothy, or if you want to pitch your tent around here. There's quite a lot of nice flat grass around where you could be down close to the foreshore there, and beautiful setting overlooking the water. This is Glendoe bothy, if you want to stay there. There's a bit of grass around where you could pop a tent. There's a beautiful view across the loch. This is a beautiful setting, a couple of hours or so out from Glendoe bothy. The only concern is that grass looks as though it could be quite boggy and marshy, so as with quite a few of the other spots, you'll have to hunt around, find a slightly drier spot and put your tent there, but it will be worth it for the view. This looks another beautiful loch high up. It's about 6 kilometres after Glendoe bothy, and it's a lovely sunny day, as you can see. There's plenty of sort of flat grass down there, but I suspect it looks like it would be very boggy, so you might have to hunt around slightly higher up for a flatter, drier spot. This one looks pretty promising as well. Again, another beautiful setting. I know I keep saying that. And there's again a lot of grass which is pretty flattish down there. Again, I can't vouch for how dry, but it looks less damp. That, if not, you'd have to go slightly higher up. Looks like on the far side there might be some more raised up, probably would be less boggy. I added this one in as a bit of an afterthought because I realised to my cost that if you don't stop somewhere around about here, then it's a long trek before there's anywhere further that's suitable. This spot is on the 4x4 track from Lochstack Lodge up until the turning off towards Rhiconich, which is marked with the arrow. And there's quite a few places along the 4x4 track you could stop. However, once you turn off towards Rhiconich on that path, it's about 7 kilometres of awful walking, as I learnt to my horror, and because it got dark I had to camp in a horrible spot. And even when you get to Rhiconich, you're on road walking with fields either side fenced off, so not very easy to find anywhere to put your tent up. And you've either got 5 kilometres to the turning where you turn off to the right if you're going over the hills to Sandwoodbay, or if, as I did, you continue on the road, then from Rhiconich it's about 13 kilometres until you get to the path off towards Sandwoodbay. So either way, it's quite a long trek, and you'd be better to stop here for the night unless you've got plenty left in your legs. I can't vouch for this place. I haven't inspected it. It's a new age hippie retreat where you can do yoga and well-being courses, but it looks as though you can pitch your tent without participating in those activities. The reason I put it in is it's a long trek from the last reasonable camping spot near Lochstack Lodge. After that, it's all the way along that horrible path to Rhiconich, and then from there onwards, it's on the road. And from here to Sandwoodbay is still about another sort of 10 kilometres, so you may want to break your journey here. This attractive looking spot is just off the road on the path heading towards Sandwoodbay, but it's still about another 7 kilometres to go, and it may be that you haven't got the strength in your legs to get there tonight, in which case this would be a very nice place to pitch your tent, and then you could head off there tomorrow. This is Sandwoodbay. What a beauty. And this is definitely a plus minus on the grid reference, because there's probably a kilometre or more to choose from. Now, you could camp on the beach, there's ample room, but the sand is very soft, so you'd need rocks or something to put your guys in. And in any case, camping on a beach on sand is never a good idea, it gets everywhere. However, just up behind these dunes with this grass on are some lovely rolling green hills, and you could find numerous lovely perfect spots. You could pitch the tent out of the wind, hopefully, because it can be quite breezy. It is today, even though this bright sunshine, and a bit of shelter, wander down to the beach. And this is Strathcarron bothy. It's about a couple of kilometres due east from Sandwoodbay, and it's, as with most bothies, you can either stay in it or there is flat grass around if you want to pitch your tent, though it is pretty marshy, so you'd have to be careful to pick a dry spot. It's well worth a visit, whatever, even if you're not staying around here, because it's got quite a bit of history. A recluse, James McCrory, lived here for 32 years, and there's still some of his paintings on the wall, so it's well worth dropping in to have a look. If you need or want to spend the night near to the lighthouse, the guidebook recommends this grid reference as a location, but as you can see from the picture, it's extremely exposed and bleak, so check your weather forecast first, and I couldn't really recommend it, as you would be very exposed to the elements. A better bet, if you want or need to stay near the lighthouse overnight, is to head south for about 8 kilometres towards Kinlochewe bothy. Follow the rough 4x4 track, which heads eventually towards the ferry, but you turn off to the left and down to a beautiful beach by the side of the water, and you can spend the night there. And if you want to catch the bus down to the ferry the next morning, you don't need to walk all the way back to the lighthouse. You could just walk back to the track and flag the bus down, and it'll stop and pick you up. That's the final post. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give me a like, and if you want to keep in touch, click on the subscribe button. Good luck on the trail, and thanks for watching.